How's it? The other day, I was cycling through the BBC website and I came across a photographer who, at 89 years old, is crushing it on Instagram. And he is a fantastic example of how quality will always beat the algorithm. Today's video is very proudly sponsored by PicDrop, and a little bit more about them later on. So David Hurn is a photographer who, if you don't know the name, you certainly recognize this photograph. Sean Connery, 007, standing there, iconic pose. But the more eagle-eyed amongst you would probably notice that that is not a Walter PPK. That's not Bond's gun. And the reason behind this is because when they turned up to do the shoot, they'd totally forgotten to bring the prop gun with them. But fortunately, David is a amateur air pistol kind of guy. And he said, I have an air pistol here that we can use. So that is David's air pistol being held by 007. I love these kind of stories about famous photographs because they really give you an insight into how things often just seem to come together. I wasn't particularly sort of aware of David as a photographer, although when I looked into his body of work, there's an awful lot of photographs that I recognize. And what was interesting is that David seems to have gotten a start in photography in a sort of similar fashion that I did. His marks were very bad at school. You know, he wanted to be a vet. So he, national conscription was going on and he was at Sandhurst. He saw a photograph by Henri Cartier-Bresson of a Russian dad, husband, come back from somewhere, and he's buying his wife a hat. And David said he was moved to tears by this photograph because it reminded him of his dad doing exactly the same thing. And it was in that moment that he recognized the power of photography to transcend propaganda. Now I say there's a similarity there because I also feel that for years, I was struggling to find a voice in my photography. And it was only when I thought back to what photographs actually mean to me that I love the importance of family in images, that it helped me connect with the ideas and the subjects and the scenery that I was photographing. And this comes to bear in stark ways in David's photography that we'll get onto in a minute. David's start in photography is actually pretty cool because again, he's giving us a lesson in how sometimes you just gotta do it, right? Not overthink. Through a series of coincidences, he manages to get himself through to Hungary during the uprising. And it's there that he meets some reporters from Life magazine who said, look, our photographer, they couldn't get in, right? But you're here. Can you take some photographs? And David's like, sure, absolutely. And in the article, he recounts how they would have died from laughter had they've known that in the evenings he would go up to his hotel room, whip out the book of, the bumper book of how to take photographs or something, and learn basically on the job how to use the camera, how to take photographs, how to develop film, all these kind of ideas. And it's there that he cut his teeth in, becoming the photographer that he would go on to be. Now, you can imagine that in those days, it's all film and stuff like that. But had he had the ability to digitally upload his images, to get them proofed, to have people look at them, then PicDrop would be a fantastic resource for him to have. It all sits there in the cloud. You just upload your images, you send a link to the clients, whoever's looking at the images, and they just go through, they go, yep, this is kind of cool, give you some feedback straight away. What a cool thing. It would have been a godsend for me when I was doing wedding photography. And I can only imagine that, it would be extremely helpful for anybody who is working in an environment where you need to share and get feedback on pictures. So if you're interested in checking out the modern day equivalent of wiring your photographs somewhere, click on the link in the description box below for your free trial of PicDrop. The photographs from Hungary kickstarted David's career. He went on to work for The Observer and many other people. And the photographs that he's taking are so intimate in a way that I absolutely love. When I look through the photographs, I say, oh, look, there's a whole bunch of stuff there of the Beatles, that he's there with them while they're filming A Hard Day's Night. He's taking the photographs and he's becoming friendly. He's watching. He's getting to learn the dynamics. The same thing goes when he's photographing Sophia Loren on the set of El Cid. She's doing her thing. She's an up-and-coming star. He's photographing her. They get to be quite close. She has her first fashion shoot. David is the photographer who she chooses to have the pictures done. And similar things with Jane Fonda. During the filming of Barbarella, they become close friends, and he photographs her for many times over decades. I love that idea that a photographer can create images, can connect with the people, the sitters, the people who he's photographing in a deeply profound way that leads to lasting friendships. And I think this is important in photography, that you can have an empathy with your subjects. And no more does this show than in the images that David, along with Ian Berry, photographed of the Aberfan mining disaster. Aberfan is a village in Wales that in the 1950s and 60s had giant heaps of mine spill. So all the bits that they've hoofed out of the ground while they've been mining for coal. And these slag heaps, whatever you want to call them, had built up over years and years and years, and they towered over the town itself. And during this particular season, it had been raining a whole load, and the heaps became unstable. And one day, without any warning, they just collapsed, flying down the mountainside and smashing through a school full of children. David and Ian heard about this, and they went off to Aberfan to go and photograph. And David recalls that it was eerily quiet, like nobody wanted to really talk to them. They were too busy, trying to mine and get the people out, the very few, tragically few survivors. And he photographed. And I think this is where this empathy for people comes into play. Robert Capa talks about if your photographs aren't good enough, then you're not close enough. And a lot of people interpret that as being you need to be physically close to the people who you're photographing. But I interpret it to be you need to be emotionally close. And that sympathy, that empathy that David showed when he was moved to tears by a photograph that reminded him of his own father, I feel must be the same thing when he's there photographing these people. The images are so profoundly moving. I don't think anybody could look at these and not feel the grief, the shock, the numbness of all this. The photograph that especially gets to me is the one of the school with all the people. He was going through all the rubbish and the spoils that have buried their brothers and their sisters and their friends. And there's these two kids just in the foreground with their arms, one's got his arm around another's shoulder. And that is photojournalism at its best. It's not a shocking moment. It's not a blink and it's gone. It's not a crazy thing. It is a profoundly quiet, moving image that even now has the power to really connect with people. And that's what I meant about, my connection with photography, that it's in family and history and relationships are rooted in my love of photography. Those kind of images, they're the ones that get me, that get me right here. Throughout David's career, he's photographed all manner of subjects, from the Isle of Wight festival, as I said, to the Aberfan disaster, and a host of celebrities. I love the fact that somebody like David, now in 89, so they're coming towards the end of his career, still finds time to help new photographers, people coming up. I think this sharing of experiences, this wealth of knowledge that people like David built up through those years, the 50s and the 60s, where it was possible just to go somewhere and to learn on the job and get photographs that would be published in a newspaper on the front pages the next day. To be able to have the sort of access that allows you to develop relationships and friendships with people who go on to be massive film stars. David Hurn has played Monopoly at Christmas time with Ringo Starr. Imagine the stories the man can tell. He now shares this experience to anybody who, I believe, wants to go and help clean up his garden in Wales. And I wish that there were more people like that. Sharing experiences and talking about photography and going beyond all the technical stuff is something that I also, as you may have guessed, I hold dear. And in my own small way, I want to share my own experiences and give other people who have got knowledge to share, to exchange and offer a place and a platform that can do this. And this is what Aperture Allies is all about. This is my new community that we've got started. There is a small but fantastically engaged group of photographers, not talking about f-stops and things of that nature, not just dumping images and saying, yep, I like it, looking for likes. This is people having back and forth, asking questions, growing together, supporting each other. If you'd like to get a 14-day access pass to Aperture Allies, click in the link in the comment section. I look forward to seeing you there. If you want to see the photographs that I think are the most influential in any photographer's life, then check out this video over here. Thank you ever so much for watching. It means absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.